Hi, everybody, and welcome once again to Ivy League Analytical English. I'm Karen.
And I'm Wesley.
Today we have a translation exercise for you. As you know, that's one of my favorite kinds of lessons in the whole Ivy magazine.
好，第一题由于全球暖化，海平面持续升高，对太平洋上地势不高的岛屿构成威胁啊。那由于全球暖化啊，当然我们可能直接想到就是 because of 或者 due to 啊，那个都没有错，都可以。好，那但是呢，我只是想我们提供至少我想提供另外一种方法，就是我们直接把这两句子合起来，就变成说全球暖化使得海平面持续升高啊，意思是一样的。好，那我们接下来就可以这样讲了，我们可以讲全球暖化这个 term 这个 phrase 大家一定要记得哈 ，global warming 哈，全球暖化，所以造成了什么东西？那这个我们要接下来要决定时态啊。如果说我们用现在简单式的话，那当然没有错，感觉起来好像这是个真理哈，这一直在发生。但是呢，我们如果要强调这个事情的迫切性啊，就表示说现在这件事情正在发生当中，所以我们不能再讲说，哎呀，就好像太阳每天升起来嘛，习惯了就好了，不能这样子。我们要讲说这是一个持续现在正在发生的事情，所以我们用现在进行式，我是觉得是比较好的一个时态。所以我可以说 global warming is causing 啊，这造成什么什么。那造成什么呢 ？Sea levels 就是海平面。那这个地方 sea levels 我加了 s， 因为这个海平面啊，这个当然它高高低低，你可以这样讲，高高低低就不止一个海平面了。然后呢，这个也许全世界不同的地方海平面啊，也许会有一点差距，所以我讲这个加了一个 s 啊，所以 global warming is causing sea levels to rise 升高就用 rise， 然后持续我们用一个副词 continuously 啊。所以这个句子前半段就是 global warming is causing sea levels to rise continuously。好，然后呢，接下来第二部分我们要表达对太平洋上地势不高的岛屿造成威胁啊。首先呢，我们要决定一下地势不高的岛屿这个英文要怎么样写啊？那英文里面呢，其实有一个字专门形容这样子一个状况啊，就是离这个平面高出来不多的啊，英文叫做 low lying 哈。L-O-W 那 L-Y-I-N-G 这个在我们杂志里面也有这样的一个字哈拼法，所以呢，造成这些地势不高的岛屿怎么样？对他们构成威胁。那构成威胁，当然我们可以用一个动词表达构成，然后再加一个名词威胁，例如说 pose a threat to， 这是构成威胁。但是其实威胁本身就是可以当动词用。那我这里呢，我就把威胁当动词用，把它变成一个分词片语，直接加在刚刚那个causing sea levels to rise continuously 后面啊，所以我可以讲说所以 global warming is causing sea levels to rise continuously， 那 comma threatening 就威胁啊 the low-lying islands in the Pacific Ocean 啊，在太平洋上的这些 low-lying islands 啊，那这样这个句子呢就可以写完了。好，所以这里我构成威胁，我直接把它用威胁这个动词下去啊，这感觉起来更直接一点啊，所以我的翻译我再念一次。Global warming is causing sea levels to rise continuously, threatening the low-lying islands in the Pacific Ocean.
I think it's interesting that we followed exactly the same strategy with the first part of the sentence. And I think the reason for that is if you have a lot of background information at the beginning, it usually tends to get put elsewhere in the sentence in English because in Chinese, 时间、地点、原因通通都是挤在左边，在前面的部分。But in English, we may scatter it elsewhere in the sentence, not necessarily at the beginning like in Chinese. If you leave it at the beginning in English, it's probably correct, but it will sound a bit like Chinese English because we don't always put the reason at the beginning. We will tend to put it in probably in the middle or even towards the end of the sentence. My sentence is, global warming is causing a steady rise in sea levels, threatening low-lying Pacific islands. One more time. Global warming is causing a steady rise in sea levels, threatening low-lying Pacific islands. The first part is the same as Wesley's. At the end, I saved a few words by saying low-lying Pacific islands instead of low-lying islands in the Pacific Ocean.
好，那刚刚 Karen 老师讲到这个蛮有趣的一点了，就是英文里面通常元音不会把它放在句首啊，会把它放在后面。当然可以放，按照文法来讲可以放，但是通常你放在句首的话，就感觉比较强调这个原因了啊。所以一开始你如果 due to global warming， 感觉起来这原因好像是个很重要的事情。
And you know, something that just occurred to me as you were saying that, when we use this kind of a structure, very often it's for a very formal purpose. For example, if you're in an airport, you may hear an announcement like this: due to the weather, all flights will be postponed.
好，因为气候的因素，所有的飞机都将误点啊。好，所以要注意到这个，你可以把这个原因放在句首，但是要了解到在英文里面，你把原因放在句首的时候，通常是比较正式，或者是你要凸显那个原因的时候才会这样做啊。所以 Karen 老师一开始他跟我一样，他也是用不是我跟他一样，这个 global warming is causing， 但是他是用 a steady rise， 他用 steady 用一个形容词来修饰那个名词 rise。那我呢是causing sea levels to rise continuously， 我把 rise 当动词用，然后呢用一个副词 continuously 来修饰这个动词，所以呢我先讲动词 rise， 然后呢在后面加 continuously 用副词来修饰它。那 Karen 老师他是用名词的 rise， 然后呢前面用 steady 用形容词来修饰它，所以它变成一个 causing a steady rise。 好，那接下来呢最后的一部分也是一样，我用的是我们可以说 the low-lying islands in the Pacific Ocean， 但是有点长，但你可以把它稍微换一下，像 Karen 老师那样子 threatening low-lying Pacific Islands， 这样就可以了。
And I want to point out something about pronunciation, and it's of the word rise, R-I-S-E. First of all, the S is pronounced like Z, 不是 rice. It's rise.The second thing is, 因为 Z 是有声的子音，所以母音要拉长，不是 rise 就好了。It's rise, rise. 那如果是 rice 的话，那就是米饭了。rice 母音变短，其实那个舌头的位置也不太一样。然后呢，那个 s 的音就是念 s， 不是念 z。rice, rise, rice, rise.
好，所以要注意到这 R-I-S-E 那个 S 是念 Z 的声音，那因为它是个有声子音，所以它前面那个母音会拉长，所以要把它念成 rise， 这样念比较清楚一点。
而不是 rice, that's right. I'm going to reread my translation. Global warming is causing a steady rise in sea levels, threatening low-lying Pacific islands. Let's look now at the translation in our magazine.Due to global warming, sea levels have been rising and posing a threat to low-lying islands in the Pacific Ocean. That is another way to do it.
好，所以呢，由于 global warming， 把原因放在前面的，然后呢，接下来用 sea levels 来当主词。这个 sea levels 做两件事情，第一件事情 they have been rising， 一直在上升当中。他们做的第二件事情是 they have been posing a threat，构成威胁，然后后面用一个介系词 to， 对谁构成威胁呢？对 low-lying islands in the Pacific Ocean 构成威胁。
We are done with number 1. So let's move on now to our second sentence.
OK， 那第二题他讲到全球的政府和企业应该要尽全力拯救这些地方免于被淹没。那全球的政府和企业全球的我们当然有一个形容词叫 global， 可是 global 通常它有一些固定的搭配，而且 global 感觉起来是这个我们讲到 global warming 整个全球性跟全球有关的东西
Or the global economy.
跟全球经济这跟全球有关的，所以这个地方的全球的指的是它是政府跟企业的位置是在全世界各地，所以呢我们可以用 all over the world 放在后面来修饰它。所以全球的政府和企业我们就可以讲成 governments， 要注意是复数的 governments and businesses， 这个不同的企业business 后面加 es， 那 all over the world 全世界的这些政府和企业都应该尽全力，这个我想应该蛮容易的，应该尽全力就是 should do their best， 要尽他们的全力，干嘛呢？ to 做什么？要拯救这些地方免于被淹没那我们可以拯救这些地方免于被怎么样？我们可以说 to save these places from， 就是拯救这些地方以免被怎么样。from 是个介系词，所以后面要接动词的话要接动名词，所以我可以说to save these places from becoming submerged。submerged 就是淹没S-U-B-M-E-R-G-E 那所以避免这些地方被淹没，就是 to save these places from becoming submerged。 好，所以这整句话我再念一次。 Governments and businesses all over the world should do their best to save these places from becoming submerged.
Okay, my translation is, governments and corporations around the world should do whatever they can to prevent these places from becoming inundated. Now, that's probably a new word for you. It's a somewhat more difficult word, but it's worth knowing. It will appear on some tests someday, I am guessing. Inundated. I-N-U-N-D-A-T-E is the 原型, and then we add D for the past tense and past participle. So the sentence once more. Governments and corporations around the world should do whatever they can to prevent these places from becoming inundated. That means flooded.
好，所以 Karen 老师呢，他企业他用的是 corporations 啊，这个感觉起来比较伟大一点哦 corporations 用 businesses 感觉起来他们只是做生意的。好，那 Karen 老师他用的是 around the world， 我用的是 all over the world， 都对，都可以哈。然后呢，尽全力拯救，这 Karen 老师他用的是 should do whatever they can 啊，这个很好的一个翻译哈，因为尽全力其实就是他们能做什么就要做啊，所以这样should do whatever they can， 目的是要 prevent， 我们用 prevent 也可以 prevent 某样事情 from happening 啊，那这里呢是 prevent these places from becoming， 然后呢 inundated 这个字呢是淹没的意思。这个字如果你考试的时候能够用，而且用对的话，你的这个阅卷老师会非常的 impressed 啊 ，so much so that 他可能会 overlook 你其他的错误，他会哇这个用太棒了，好，所以这种字呢大家可以学一学，而且不但要学会它怎么拼，你要学会它怎么用。
All right, let's look at the translation in our magazine now. Governments and corporations around the world should try their best to save these places from being swamped. This is correct. Being swamped means being flooded. But now, usually we use this in the metaphorical sense. For example, maybe Wesley says to me, Karen, could you help me with this translation? I'll say, well, Wesley, I'd really like to help, but I'm swamped right now.
啊，就表示我现在被淹没了，我现在很忙很忙 I'm overwhelmed 有那种感觉
I'm overwhelmed. That's exactly what it means. We usually use it now in the metaphorical sense, but this is the original, literal sense. A swamp is a 沼泽, and if something is swamped, it means that it is covered with water, it is flooded. So the translation in our magazine once more is governments and corporations around the world should try their best to save these places from being swamped.
好，所以注意 swamp 这个字的用法。
That is it for today. Please tune in next time. We'll see you then. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.